I'm Stevee Dee. Welcome back to my show. This episode, we're going to talk about another amazing landmark synthesizer that also changes the shape of the music industry. This one's a little bit different than the Mini Moog because unlike the Mini Moog, this is what we call a hybrid. It's a semi-modular synthesizer, whereas the Mini Moog has a fixed signal path. You cannot alter the signal path that has prefixed modifiers. You can run signal into the filter. There is an external in, which is very cool on the Mini Moog, but that's the extent of external control and any kind of modular synthesis. This, on the other hand, although it does have preset signal flow, all of the parameters can be patched. You can break the normals and patch other each oscillator has multiple waveforms. In the preset signal path, oscillator 1 is here we look on the diagram here, oscillator 1 has a square wave, but oscillator 1 also has a sawtooth wave, but the square wave is normal to the filter. Oscillator 2 has a pulse wave that's normal to the filter. And oscillator 2 is cool because it has multiple waveforms. It's got actually 4 different waveforms. It's one of the few synthesizers that offers you a pure sine wave. Whereas on the Mini Moog, you have to feed back the filter and turn the oscillators off into the mixer path. And you actually can get a really cool sine wave lead sound. But you have to go about it in a roundabout way. And if the Mini Moog isn't calibrated perfectly like mine is, your equal temperament tuning is going to be a little off and it's going to sound weird. Here, you already have a sine wave at your disposal automatically on the ARP 2600. So 4 different waveforms, and then oscillator 3 mimics oscillator 1. And then you have the filter section here, very similar to the Moog. Well, similar to the Moog in the respect that up until the mid-'70s, from 1971 to about 1976, ARP was actually using the patented Moog ladder filter design. And ARP hypocritically epoxied all their submodules so that competitors could not see which components were instrumental in creating the sound. So they also did that to the filter probably so that no one would know. But I guess at some point Moog caught wind of it and forced them to redesign the filter. So Dennis Collin was forced to create an alternate filter. We'll get into all that in later episodes. I mean, I'll actually show you the inside. We'll go through the different types of filters. We'll go through the evolution of the oscillators from the blue and gray Minis all the way through the orange and black ARP 2600s, which were the last incarnation up until 1981 when they discontinued the ARP 2600. But this particular model, this is an ARP 2601, and this is from probably 1974, 1975, that era. And this keyboard is not the original keyboard. The original keyboard that came with this was not the duophonic keyboard. This is the 3620 duophonic keyboard that was added after the fact. So, the filter section goes into the voltage-controlled amplifier, and from there, we have the output. What's also cool about the ARP 2600 is it came from the factory with a reverb tank. And if you listen carefully, you can hear the reverb in this cool sound that I happen to have up on there. You take the reverb off, you hear how dry it is, and I can turn the reverb all the way up. Now, what's cool about the ARP 2600 is the infinite amount of sound design possibilities, especially with the patch points. The fact that it is it can act as a fully modular synthesizer with all these patch points. 3 oscillators. I mean, what's cool, it's got an envelope follower, which can track the filter. It's got a dedicated ring modulator. It can do FM synthesis with the 3 oscillators as well as the ring modulator. You have a preamp input. You could plug a microphone into it or a guitar. And I mean, the possibilities on here are stunning. Noise generator with 3 different types of noise. You have pink noise, you have white noise, and you have like a low frequency noise, which kind of is mostly, I'd say, noise in the lower range, in the low frequencies to the low mid frequencies emphasized. We have a sample and hold circuit, which the Mini Moog does not have. That would have been an add-on for the Mini Moog. So sample and hold circuit included. You have lag processors, you have voltage inverters, you have an A/B switch, and yeah, like I said, one of the most iconic uses of this was the voice of R2-D2 from Star Wars. So Lucasfilm up there in Marin County actually had a pretty slick sound designer who voiced R2-D2 using an ARP 2600 synthesizer. So this black box here is actually the voice of R2-D2. And we'll get into that in future episodes. I'll show you how to imitate R2-D2 using the ARP 2600. For now, this is just an overview, and we're gonna just touch the basics. And again, you want to know the most popular use of this was in motion picture, film, sound design, but also rock groups, like I'm trying to think of the name, who did Frankenstein. That was Frankenstein. That famous song was all ARP 2600, all the keyboard parts, and Edgar Winter. So the Edgar Winter group used this, and you could watch the video where he actually straps the keyboard around his neck like a guitar, and he plays all those cool synthesizer parts, and then uses the filter feedback, filter resonance, and the way it's patched to create that really cool sound in the middle of it. I will get into that, and I'll show you how to make that sound on here in future episodes. But what's really special about this synthesizer is that this particular one was owned by the Commodores. And this was Lionel Richie. This was used by him in the studio and on tour in the 70s. And I acquired it through a collection. And it's just very cool to own such a piece of amazing musical history. And, you know, the mojo that still emanates from this instrument from the Commodores and Lionel Richie, you know, one of my favorite groups and one of my favorite artists of all time, Lionel Richie. But there's countless groups who have used the ARP 2600 for performance, for production. So this synthesizer is incredibly versatile because of the sound design capabilities, the flexibility with the modular patching, and you know, the portability. I mean, you see, it's got a handle up here, so it's roadworthy. Well, at least it was then. I would not take this on the road because it's still, in my opinion, it's vintage. There's components in there that are delicate, although I completely refurbished this. This has been completely restored. Anything in question was replaced. All 57 sliders on here, all these sliders were desoldered from the circuit boards, cleaned, re-lubricated, and reinstalled. It was painstaking, and it took weeks to do, but there's no other way to correctly restore an ARP 2600. A lot of people will replace the sliders with newer sliders. The quality isn't as good, in my opinion, because I've used them. So the only way to really do it is to desolder all of them, take them apart, painstakingly clean the carbon resistor, and painstakingly clean the wipers, and then relubricate it, reinstall it. And that's what we did on here. So this had a complete and utter restoration, and it's flawless. Everything works on here, and this is one of my workhorse synths for sound design. And it's just so complicated and the possibilities are so immense. I can't get into all the facets of what it can do in this overview, but we will dig deep into this, and I will show you some of the coolest sound design that can be done on here. And, you know, I'll recreate a lot of the iconic patches and synth sounds. We'll get into Frankenstein. I'll show you R2-D2, and I'll show you just amazing sci-fi sounds that can be made on here that only modular synthesizers can do. So ARP 2600, amazing synthesizer. It's also up there in all the top 10 lists of classic vintage synthesizers. This is always either number one or number two. This and the Mini Moog are just they're the cat's meow as far as synthesizers. And yes, it can reproduce the cat's meow. So once again, thank you for listening. We will come back in other episodes and really get into what this thing can do. And, you know, we'll go the full nine on here. So once again, thank you, and happy listening.